Welcome to this lecture on the rise of the Nazi Party from their formation to the Beer Hall Putsch. We're actually also going to look at the consequences of this through to about 1929. Well, where did the Nazi Party start? Initially, in 1919, it was known as the German Workers' Party and it had been set up by Anton Drexler. Adolf Hitler did not come into it until a bit later. As you can see, he was member 555, that meaning there had been 554 members before him. Through to about 1929, for those 10 years, basically they were a fringe party. They attempted a revolution, as we're going to see a bit later on, but very much on the edges of the political process in the Weimar Republic. The key ideas were November criminals, basically those politicians who had agreed to first of all, the armistice and later on the Treaty of Versailles. These people were condemned in the Nazis' eyes as giving in, irrespective of the fact that the German High Command at that time were also wanting to create an armistice and sue for peace. Both the High Command later on created this myth of the November criminals, and this was taken up by many soldiers returning from the front, mainly because they felt that they were on the verge of victory, certainly earlier on in 1918. Obviously not the case by about October 1918. Also very much anti-Versailles. They wanted to retain or regain their military might and also take back those lands that had been lost as a result of the Versailles Treaty. Completely opposed to communism, they saw it as a great threat and very un-German and clearly anti-democracy. For them, the Weimar Republic was not the German way and would lead to instability. Not only that, was creating things that they saw around them, such as not just the economic problems and the political problems, but the cultural and social problems as well. How did this develop? Well, in 1920, they renamed themselves the National Socialist German Workers' Party and adopted the 25-point programme, which had been written up by both Drexler and Hitler. The key ideas in this, as you're going to look at later on, included not just some of the ideas that we'd heard about before, but adopted extreme nationalism and racism. Another key element, when this is quite ironic in many ways, they saw themselves as a workers' party, hence the change in the name. And this was mainly popular in the rural areas, and socialistic elements, which was obviously allied to the workers' party element. The key idea there is the Volksgemeinschaft, or the people's community, the idea that there is somehow a group or there is a society or a larger, wider grouping which were completely Germanic. People who lived in Germany but weren't part of this Volksgemeinschaft would be expunged in some way. This included, as we're going to find out later on, the Jews. Certainly initially anti-capitalist and with a socialistic membership. People like Röhm and Strasser, as we're going to find out a bit later, were both enticed by and interested in this socialistic element. The socialistic element was key only in terms of its allied to nationalism, i.e. that the redistribution of wealth would only be to those people within the Volksgemeinschaft. So who were the Strasser brothers? Gregor Strasser, who joined in 1920, he took part in the Munich Putsch of 1923 and was a gifted orator and reorganised the party after 1925 under Hitler's leadership. Built up the support in northern Germany, mainly the Lutheran area, but, interestingly enough, was opposed to Hitler's anti-Semitism. By 1930, he was the second most powerful Nazi after Hitler. And Otto Strasser, his brother, who joined in 1925, a former member of the SPD, the Socialist Party, but, unlike his brother, advocated racism and nationalism, and he believed the party should be appealing to the lower middle classes and the workers. He left the party in 1930 because of the strategies for widening the base of the membership of the Nazi Party adopted by Goebbels and Hitler, and the idea of abandoning the workers' element. Hitler himself, he resigns after Drexler's policy of cooperation with the idea of Drexler's policy to cooperate with other parties, but at the Hofbrauhaus meeting he was invited back into the NSDAP and then given total control. Drexler is pushed to the sidelines. The next thing, key thing that Hitler does is establish the Völkischer Beobachter, or the People's Observer, and also, more importantly, the Sturmabteilung. The Völkischer Beobachter was basically a newspaper which propagated the key ideas of the Nazi Party, and was closely allied with the SA, which was basically the stormtroopers of the Nazi Party, later on became known as the Brown Shirts. Received protection from the police, the judiciary and the army leadership, mainly in the area where they were mainly based, which was around Bavaria and Munich. Received also support from influential Munich families, the Lehmanns and the Brucksteins. The SA, as I said, known as the Sturmabteilung, or Stormtroopers, set up in 1921, and by 1933 the membership was about 500,000. Led by Ernst Röhm, known for their thuggish behaviour, they basically were street fighters and very loyal to Hitler. As we're going to see, by 1933, Hitler saw them as a problem more than a help, and dealt with them in 1934. More about that later. There was a complete hatred of communism, although they did have a socialistic element to that. Mainly made up of disaffected youth, of which there was lots due to large-scale unemployment throughout the 1920s, even during the so-called golden years, and especially after 1929. Hitler was invited to join the government in 1933 in order to control them. Rather ironic in many ways. Again, we'll look at that a bit later on. So, why was there a Munich putsch of 1923? Well, there had already been one attempt by the extreme right in the Kapp putsch in 1920, and was also the assassination of government minister and well-known German Jew Walter Rathenau in the early 1920s. Key right-wing leaders, Lossow and Kahr, had encouraged an uprising, which had been prompted by the French invasion of the Ruhr in early 1923. Rather than just rise up, Hitler forced them to consider a march on Berlin. He was very much influenced by Mussolini's march on Rome in the previous year, which had been successful. He believed that by marching from Munich to Berlin, which was a quite considerable distance, this would have a demonstrable effect. More and more people would join on this march, and by the time they got to Berlin, there would be no need for violent action. Although this would be seen as a revolutionary attempt to take over the government. During the Munich uprising, the SA seized Bavarian government members. Ludendorff, World War I general, lends his support. 2,000 Nazis march on Munich, and the president Ebert declares an emergency. However, the army do step in, and 14 Nazis are killed. Hitler himself dislocates his shoulder and flees. Leading Nazis, including Hitler and Strasser, along with Ludendorff, are arrested. The putsch obviously fails. So what are the consequences of Munich? Well, first of all, Hitler is put on trial. He defends his case, and through this achieves national fame. The presiding judge at the trial was also very biased in many ways, and gave Hitler a very lenient sentence of around about 9 months. Remember, he is attempting to overthrow the government. In many cases, places around the world, this would have been dealt with by execution. He was, as I say, given 9 months prison sentence. Also, the Nazis become the third largest party in Bavaria. As I said before, the judge is a known right-wing sympathiser, and although given 5 years, he only serves 9 months of those, and is kept in good conditions at Landsberg prison. Whilst he's there, he dictates his first attempt, or volume 1, of Mein Kampf, i.e. Mein Struggle. And within this, it's not just about his biography, but his key ideas about how he believes Hitler, himself, the Nazi Party, and eventually Germany would succeed. So what happens to the Nazis after Munich? Due to Hitler's imprisonment, the NSDAP nearly disintegrates in 1924. There is no leader. However, when he's released, he commits the party to what he calls legal means as a result of the Bamberg Conference 1925. He becomes the key leader, ostracizes key elements that had been opposed to him, and the key idea he brings about is the Führerprinzip, to win mass support. So there's two key things there: the abandonment of the revolutionary method and attempt to win power through legal means, i.e. using the democratic process, of which he abhors. And the second thing, the Führerprinzip. The key idea here is that there should be one leader, one person who is in complete control of the party, and everybody else must obey him. And this is not just about Hitler, but about the idea that he is somehow the Nazi Party's saviour, but also Germany's saviour. In 1925, the party is reorganised by Gregor Strasser, and in 1928, the Goebbels is appointed as propaganda chief, and this is one of the key areas where they start to gain a great deal of support, especially in the rural areas. From 1929, the party takes advantage of the depression and sees an electoral breakthrough. More about that later.